Alright guys, haven't uploaded content in a little while for two reasons. One, built basically New York City's premier beverage catering company, did events for companies like Meta, Roku, Oracle, Google, so it was a little busy, and also built the #1 experience in the food and drink category. Here it is right here in Charleston. Come take a look. Sip History and a Secret Speakeasy.
Congrats on the long spot, man.
There you go. Stay like right here.
Yeah,
That's right. It's coming out. That's part of the strategy. Take your guesses. What's in the shot there?
Tequila, lime, and then we're guessing ghost pepper.
Okay. 1 out of 3 of those is right.
Tequila.
Tequila.
We know we smell the tequila.
All right.
Not lime.
No lime.
Not lime.
Hold on.
Wow.
Wouldn't got the key.
Lisa, you're fired.
That's fine.
Wow.
Some fruit.
It's very
based
hot.
Okay.
Right? Some fruit-based thing.
There's some fruitiness in there.
Maybe a kiwi.
That's right. No kiwi.
Could it be some of this stuff here?
Anybody else? It could be.
Wow.
Pear?
Oh, is
I
that
might just tell you, otherwise it's gonna take
Pear?
forever.
Yeah.
So
Okay, you better move.
anyway, the whole point is, hopefully I got your attention with that shot there. So welcome to Sip History and a Secret Speakeasy. Okay. I'm actually proud to say this experience just went from #2 to #1 in Charleston.
All right.
That's exactly what you're supposed to do. No, I'm kidding. I feel weird now.
Yeah.
I do think you're in for a treat today. Okay, so I'm Tommy Paul, but I go by Tommy Alchemix. It's a little bit of a stage name. It's also my Instagram name if you guys have heard of such a thing. Because last year,
Okay, we're not that old.
We're all kids that are in that zone.
We have kids your age.
I'm kidding.
That's how we know.
As you drink more, I can promise the jokes get a little better.
Yeah.
So hopefully that helps. But yeah, so I go by Tommy Alchemy because last year I moved here, started a beverage catering company. It's called Alchemix. So you're gonna see the logos around. So we bring craft cocktails to events and of course do these cocktail classes as well, right? But actually, it went well enough. We moved into New York City a few months later, did events for companies like Meta, Roku, Oracle, just did Google. So
Oh, cool.
a couple names you might have heard of
Congratulations.
before.
Yeah.
But also last year when I moved here, I was on the opening team of a bar in town. It's called Little Palm. Little Palm is opened by Death & Co. or Death & Company. So has anybody ever heard that name?
Oh, no.
So it's one of the more famous cocktail bars in the world because they have cocktail books and stuff like that, alright? So just brought all that up because I have a huge ego actually.
Yeah.
You guys know that I know what I'm talking about. No, I'm actually kidding. But I am like a cocktails and spirits expert on paper, alright? But with that being said, the format of this class is actually pretty loose because hopefully everyone's going to walk out drunk, right? So the thing is, it's not too stuffy, okay? But today, we're going to talk a little bit about spirits, a little bit about mixers, a little bit about cocktail technique, and of course, Prohibition era history as well. I just got to say, we do get kind of an eclectic mix that come to the class of old timers. I'm not looking at anybody. They want to know, you see all the nitty gritty of the history here. And also bachelorette parties that are like, let's just do shots, please. Don't bore us to death with all that. So we got a little something for everybody, all right? So that shot is actually what we call a split base, 2 different kinds of alcohol, tequila and mezcal. And there's one of our signature syrups. It's a habanero agave syrup. That's where the spice is coming from. And fresh lemon juice, actually, not lime.
Lemon.
You were right.
I said lemon, you said
I
lime.
thought it was lime.
Lisa, you suck.
Yeah.
Now, I just gotta tell you that typically everybody gets that right on the first try, so I don't know what's the matter with you guys.
It's a slow group. It's not a surprise. We're going to continue to disappoint you.
We're late bloomers. Late
No, it's
bloomers.
good actually. It's only up from here. It makes me look
That's
better.
right.
That's right.
That's
All
exactly
right, so the intro's almost over. I promise, but one more thing. My goal here is to provide some frame breakers for everybody. So that's just things to make you think about cocktails differently. So hopefully you walk out with some pro tips you can take into bars and kind of become more sophisticated drinkers. But of course, make tastier cocktails at home as well. All right. So
There you go.
with that being said, what's the first thing that comes to mind when I say the word daiquiri?
Ice. Rum.
Okay.
Strawberry.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Fruit.
Fruit, banana.
Yeah, tropical.
Right.
Right.
Daiquiri ice.
Spring break.
Okay.
Yeah.
So strawberry and frozen are by far the 2 most common answers.
Yeah.
Okay, rum's the only correct answer so far, so well done. But of course, some people say banana. That's actually rare. But hurricane straw on the beach, sweet, probably too sweet, frozen.
Yeah.
Bunch of horse shit like that. But actually, many people are surprised to find the original daiquiri. We call it the classic daiquiri. That was none of those things. It's just a really simple concoction: fresh squeezed lime juice, simple syrup, and rum. Now, for classes like this, I'm only going to interrupt 4 or 5 times, talk about the history. Other than that, we're going to go nuts. And also, you guys are all going to jump back here and make the last cocktail.
Excellent.
Some of the tricks of the trade, all right? So, definitely going to want to take notes, but we're going to kick it off with the classic daiquiri today. But also, of course, I'm also famous, so it's $10,000 of photos. As long as just tag. Start the conversation with you. Do you typically like cocktails a little more citrus forward and shaken or spirit forward and stirred? Go ahead and get in there first before I move on.
What, sturdy? Spirit fort? You said a spirit.
Citrus forward and shaken or spirit forward and stirred?
And what's the sturdy? Oh, stirred.
Stirred. That's
I'm
right.
still trying to get the sturdy.
So anyway, with that as a hint, okay, citrus forward and shaken versus spirit forward and stirred, take a guess. Or maybe you already know the answer. What's the main difference between when we shake versus stir a cocktail? In other words, why would we shake versus stir?
Well, if you shook it, it would get colder faster, right?
No.
If you're doing it over ice, no?
Buzz, no.
Aeration
Frothy,
more?
that's true. So the one thing actually shaking adds to a cocktail that stirring doesn't is aeration. But it doesn't quite answer the question, why do we shake versus stir? Now, it's a good guess though. People will guess temperature and dilution.
Pops the flavor?
Okay?
No.
Say that for anything.
Yeah.
So actually, so temperature and dilution. So people will guess basically if you shake it, it'll make it colder and also water it down more. But actually, whether we shake or stir, we're looking for what they call a perfect temperature to dilution ratio. Okay, that's just a fancy way of saying you want to serve the cocktail perfectly cold, but also without being too watered down. All right. Go ahead and try that cocktail. You don't have
You
to-
said
excellent.
you do put glasses in the freezer also.
That's right. That's right.
So-
So anyway,
How do you decide
go
what
ahead.
to do with
Any difference with the short or tall glass, or just?
Yeah, so actually the owner here collects a bunch of vintage glassware, which is cool, but it makes my life hell.
Question
Like same amount of booze, which is I'm thinking what you're concerned about. I'm just kidding.
Yum.
All right. I'm gonna tell you this one also. Okay, the answer is if the cocktail has acid in it, we have to shake it. All right. That's actually the only answer. So most common types of acid in the States for cocktails are lemon and lime juice. We're gonna use both of those today. So like you said, if you go to a Japanese cocktail joint, sometimes they'll use yuzu. Now orange and grapefruit are other obvious acidic ingredients you have to shake, right? And then actually coffee as well is highly acidic. So if there's any of those ingredients in the drink, we have to shake it. Because that's what's required to what we call bind all the ingredients together, okay? It just really has to do with different densities of liquids. What do you think of the daiquiri?
It's delicious.
Yeah,
So the
tremendous.
acidity
Thumbs
is
up.
when you want to shake it, based on the acidity.
Yeah,
That's
well,
why we do
so-
a margarita like shaking it up so much.
Yeah, so think of it this way. If you leave a daiquiri just sitting there, even with a good shake for a while, the ingredients are going to start to
So you
separate.
can see it already.
It's called sediment. No, you can see my froth because I get a good shake.
Oh, that's what.
Yeah.
It's not happening quite yet. But so spirit is less dense than acid, which is less dense than syrup. So that's why you gotta bind everything together, right? So
They're kind of like a
Spirit
salad
is
dressing.
less dense than.
exactly like a salad dressing. If I ate salads, then I know you're talking about.
And juice, which is less than
So-
the syrup.
I guess this bit's important here. When we talk about shaking versus stirring, okay, the first question is always, what about James Bond?
Yeah.
Right?
With this
Shaking that
martini,
There you go. So there's no acid in the martini, right? We got that shaking. The first thing there is, I hate to tell you, well, I hate to be the one to tell you, but James Bond is actually made up. It's not real. Also, Ian Fleming, the author, never took my cocktail class here, so we weren't able to give him the official, we call it cockology certification, right? So, no, we don't really call it that. I should have read the room. Joke does better with Ian. All right. But as you drink this, are you noticing kind of like a little puckering situation? It's kind of a succulent taste, maybe. So I get made fun of for saying it that way, but it's the best way I know how to describe it, right? So it's almost like this sensation. Well done, you're almost done. We know who the drunk is here.
Yeah.
that's right.
It's almost like this sensation of you can't help but take another sip, kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
All right. So since this is actually the one and only daiquiri to us bartenders, cocktail bartenders, right? So I'll tell you later about how sort of the bastardization of the daiquiri happens. Actually, cocktails as a whole, but before we get there, since it's the one and only daiquiri to us, it's formally known as what they call a shit test in the bar.
Shit test?
That's right. It's a very official name.
Okay.
So the shit test just means basically the industry, we call it our cocktail bartenders. We go into a self-proclaimed cocktail bar or restaurant. order a daiquiri to observe a few things. So for one, do they know the classic recipe in the first place, right?
Okay.
So 2, observe the technique. How's the shake and all that stuff. And then 3, most important, can they balance a 3-ingredient cocktail before you get something more complicated with more ingredients, right? So have you ever heard that term balance thrown around in a bar? No. Sometimes a chef will talk about balancing a dish. Same idea. So what we mean when we say balance, bartenders, is the balance of acid and sweetness, right? At its kind of simplest level, so it can get more complicated. But in this case, we're balancing the notes of rum with fresh squeezed lime juice, simple syrup, and not adding so much shit that we bury the spirit, it's called, where you basically can't taste alcohol anymore, all right? But with that being said, here's the biggest pro tip of the day right here. I would say if you remember anything from this class, it should be this. It's a little something we call a golden ratio. Now, to be fair, we stole that from the Fibonacci sequence, but we've been using it in bars forever. The golden ratio says if you mix 1 part acid to 1 part sweet to 2 parts spirit, and you can make something pretty tasty with that kind of simple formula, right? So, threw a lot at you there. All that's a little insider baseball, but hopefully it helps, right? Because of course the shit test is gonna help you figure out if you're in a joint that can make a cocktail or not, and then golden ratio is gonna come in handy hopefully as well, because daiquiri is the most common thing I make in the middle of the night at friends' houses with just kind of the random shit they have laying around.
Does it matter like what kind of glass you serve a daiquiri in? Or can you serve it in anything?
So it's always gonna be an up drink
Okay.
with a stem.
With the stuff?
People ask me this a lot, so luckily for me, I'm like the classic cocktail guy. I don't invent cocktails, but I know 200 classics and a little bit about the history of all of them. So I'm just going with whatever's historically accurate here.
Right.
But yeah, you wouldn't want to serve the daiquiri over ice.
I'm sorry, the goal is what are the 1 part sweet, sour, 2 spirit?
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And really the only point there is that there's a ton of classic cocktails that follow the golden ratio. We use it for the daiquiri. The only little variation we made on the classic recipe is we use our signature matcha lime simple syrup. That had to wake you up somehow.
Do you sell these? Like,
That's right.
That's why they're in front of us.
10 packs,
girl.
1.2 million. No, I'll tell you about it in a little bit.
okay, all right.
But so was that the same lime that you had in the first drink? No.
So that was lemon.
So it would
No, there was lemon.
be,
But what was hot in that shot?
the shot, that's the habanero
Yeah,
dog
I was
taste.
thinking, I would have
Okay.
thought this was a daiquiri.
And then this one was,
Matcha lime simple syrup. Now there's fresh squeezed lime juice in the cocktail as well.
But the Negronis like 111, right?
That's right.
So
But-
what,
Go
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, either way, go ahead.
No, go
So
ahead.
what is bitters, what of those 3 parts,
Mhm.
what do bitters count as?
Yeah, so the thing about the golden ratio is it's not a universal. It doesn't go for every cocktail. And it actually, of course, only would go for shaken cocktails with acid, right? Because you need 1 part acid, 1 part sweet, 2 parts spirit. So this is kind of a pro
Gotcha.
tip. It's not universal for every cocktail, basically, yeah.
Yep.
Now the Negroni doesn't have any syrup in it at all.
No.
So you wouldn't, that's a whole different thing. So you take stirred cocktails, Negroni would be shaken or stirred.
I'm gonna guess stirred.
Okay, you got it.
Hey, thanks for that.
You
Set you up for
I
that.
am observant.
Feeling good about the written test here.
I am teachable.
Alright. Well, whoever's married to her, you're a lucky guy.
I've known that for years.
Alright, so you guys are moving at a good pace, so I just got one last thing on the daiquiri here, which is of course people always ask me how did the daiquiri become frozen in strawberry and all that bullshit. Kind of in the public consciousness, right? But actually, that's how the story ends. So before we get there, the story begins in 1920, okay? That's when Prohibition was signed into law. Well, it was actually 1919, but took effect in 1920, and it was through what they call the Volstead Act. So actually, Volstead was just the name of the politician. If you hear me slurring my words, it's because I started drinking on it. Politician that signed the dotted line and actually, yeah, we'll get along fine. So yeah, the name of the politician that signed the dotted line actually made alcohol federally illegal in all 48 states at the time. So it's actually minus Alaska and Hawaii. But if you go across the country, you're gonna find iterations of the name Volstead in speakeasies and bars like the Volstead Room, this, that, the other thing. So all that's just kind of like a fuck you to Prohibition thing, flipping on its head, right? But one of the interesting things that happened, of course, is all the bartenders left the States. They bounced. Went mostly to Europe, but also Latin America and Cuba, really just anywhere they could make drinks, right? So actually, The daiquiri is originally a variation of what the British Royal Navy called a grog. G-R-O-G. So, they used to add lime and molasses to rum that was just shit, basically. It was rancid. So to avoid getting scurvy and make the rum more palatable, they would have lime and molasses whilst at sea, right? But it was actually American bartenders that perfected the daiquiri as a variation of the grog, but it's also expats, bartenders that left the States during Prohibition. Now the story goes that it was probably invented in the town of Daiquiri in Cuba. But I gotta tell you that we always say that everyone was drunk when cocktails were invented, so nobody really knows.
Nobody really
and,
So it sounds good.
Therefore, the best story wins, that's right, and I can make up whatever I want because I'm telling the stories here.
How long did it is?
13 years. Wow. I don't know. 13 years.
Roosevelt came.
There's also a couple things we don't typically discuss because they're not in vogue. In terms of why Prohibition started, one of them, of course, is the women's suffrage movement. The idea was guys would get drunk and then beat their wives. I gotta tell you, I'm not for that, by the way, even though I'm for drinking, but...
Well, we're glad to hear that.
Point that one out.
Hey, ding ding.
We try to do the opposite.
That's right. All right. So ask any questions now, otherwise we're gonna move on to the next drink.
So if you would do this recipe frozen, would you still think it was a shit thing?
Yes. Now, like Little Palm, for example, where I used to work, there's a couple of good frozen drinks on the menu that are actually quite tasty. But the thing is, there's no good way to preserve like fresh lemon or lime, so they batch it in massive quantities. So you do have to add some other bullshit preservatives and stuff.
Okay.
But that's the whole thing with the shit test, right? If you do get something strawberry frozen, if you order a daiquiri, then I would just get that whiskey neat you were talking about.
If you wanted to do this like for a party, could you make a bulk batch of it?
That's right.
Would that be okay to do?
And actually, the great thing about the golden ratio is it's a ratio, not, it's a formula, not a measurement. In other words, you can make everything from a shot to a punch bowl.
Right.
Right?
So would you make it
It's a
and
good
then
pro tip there.
ice your glasses down and then just, would you still shake it before you pour it in the
You
glasses?
probably
or-
would want to, yeah.
Okay.
But you could also take a punch bowl and whisk it. And
Okay.
serve it in,
Okay.
serve it in chilled glasses, try to keep it cold.
Okay.
Now these days also, some places are actually putting these kind of cocktails on tap. They're actually pretty good.
Really?
Because they preserve the freshness, the temperature, and as long as you go through them quick enough, it'll actually keep the aeration and everything. So there it
That
is.
time of year where this.
Good question. Any others?
So you chill the glass regardless of shaking or stirring, you're saying? Or just
Regardless of shaking or
I
stirring,
can take another step.
but only for an up drink.
up to
It's not served over ice. So on that note, anybody want to guess what the next cocktail
Yeah,
Can
it's
I
just
split it with her?
No, give it ice. That sounds nice. Give it a share.
That's my guess.
Yep, and the hint is actually it's kind of an obvious one. She's a lightweight. Sharing your drink over. I saw that.
I'm doing this more like wine tasting.
That's a good friend right there.
Yeah.
This is not going to be as posh as a wine tasting, I gotta tell you that.
I'm not gonna spit it out.
Alright.
I did have one. What's speakeasy? What's the history of that mean?
Yeah,
Does that just mean bar, or what does that mean?
Yeah, I would say it's funny these days. Well, so speakeasy, the whole term comes from speakeasy, speak quietly, because they're all in barns and shit. Garages or
down
whatever. So it does kind of defeat the purpose to have a speakeasy on Google Maps. It's kind of funny. But I would say these days it's a concept. In other words, no windows, ring the bell to get in, classic cocktails. Alright.
I'll
So,
get
yeah.
down low.
So, Prohibition, all the bartenders, all that, when they became, not all of them went overseas, right? They all probably, there's some that went into and became
Hidden bars?
Yeah.
in bars.
drinks at
Yeah,
the
they had to be.
Bootleggers, yeah, or
Right.
doing some drinks illegally, yeah.
So there was a certain
But
population.
yeah,
that
we
did
just say that because, like, in a professional sense, basically, everybody left.
Skilled
But it's
labor left.
Yeah,
it's
okay.
kind of like
Generally speaking.
research, right? Like people like that idea now.
Yeah, exactly. Mostly because it's dark and you don't have to talk to two people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. There's an outhouse back there.
Excuse me.
Oh, you're fine. Alley, don't worry about
So you said, So you said, what's the next drink? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, guess what the next one is. Now the hint is it is kind of an obvious one.
Well, I think you're using your bourbon tuck here.
Rum and Coke, martini.
Rum and Coke.
No. Rum and ice.
Rum and Coke.
I know you said obvious.
Can you imagine if I did a cocktail class we served a rum and
That was a trick question.
You'd be like,
It's not the way to get to number one.
It was a trick. She was just trying to trick.
Yeah.
Trick
Passed.
I didn't
Martini?
no idea.
No.
No.
Is it one of them that like an old fashioned?
There it is. Nicely done.
Yeah.
Lisa.
And you're on a roll. What's it, old fashioned?
Old fashioned.
That's right.
You should show him how you make yours. Just quite the show.
So,
Now this guy makes quite an old fashioned down here. We're curious to
that's
see.
right. You're actually
He
teaching
laughed.
this element.
He
This
just
is
laughed.
second.
No, this is his specialty here, so I'm looking forward to learning.
But hopefully I'll give you some context. So as we made in the States, it is true it used to have to be made in Bourbon County, Kentucky, but that's not the case anymore. Now it can be made anywhere in the U.S., including Alaska and Hawaii.
I'm sorry, there's a Bourbon County, is that where it comes from?
That's where it
Yeah.
started.
Based on the
Nobody
county
knows.
names.
Kentucky, yeah.
I didn't know
In
that.
France. But it's,
Yeah,
Oh, I
a
didn't
lot
know
of
that.
people still think that that's the case to this day, but it's
Yeah.
not the case anymore. So of course that doesn't inherently make the product better, but we have a ton of grain here, a lot of great water to make whiskey as well. So that's one. So two, it's called the mash bill. The recipe of cereal grains used to make whiskey has to be 51% corn or more. The other 49% you can kind of play around with. It could be more corn, malted barley, wheat, rye, whatever.
Which is where you get your
Rice.
rooted and whatever.
Not rice. Rice actually is not a cereal grain.
they're doing it with rice now. So,
They
right?
might be, Beam Suntory might be doing that.
Okay.
But they couldn't call it bourbon. Because
Okay.
Beam Suntory is a Japanese portfolio that owns Jim Beam and other stuff now.
Yeah, these are some of the Japanese. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But here's the biggest one, and I think it's fun to talk about too. No, you're good. It has to be aged in a charred new white American oak barrel, but the significance of that is that there can never have been any product in the barrel before that, right? So that matters because there's a $1 billion industry in this country actually where we export our ex-bourbon barrels to the rest of the world.
Yeah, to Scotland.
That's true. So Mexico aged tequila in them, the Spanish aged wine in them,
Yeah.
sherry. Italians age wine in them, but actually the clinker is that even Scotland and Ireland age their whiskey in our ex-bourbon barrels.
So we're shipping
You know,
empty
what
barrels
barrels?
overseas.
Our
That's right.
ex-bourbon
Now, when I'm
Oh, yeah,
arguing with a
exactly,
Scotch or Irish whiskey guy, which happens a bit actually, I always tell them they get our sloppy seconds. That's a good way to do it. I think we should do that too.
Who won the war?
So, and actually it gets even worse because the bourbon boom happens in the 2000s, 2010s, right? So bourbon skyrockets in popularity, mostly because of the color, because again, we're getting that initial oak extraction from the barrel. So a lot of people remember if you were to hold Scotch and Irish whiskey up to the light, it's like light green, right? Because we're just extracting the oak and then sending the barrels to them, really. They gotta actually re-char them and shave the edges of the barrel to even get anything out of them. So, bourbon is on a trajectory to beat out Scotch and Irish whiskey in global exports. So the EU passes legislation not till 2009, allowing caramel color to be added to the product. So the crazy part is actually these days, almost all Scotch and Irish whiskey is dyed. Which is scandalous, right? Because they're faking the aging process in essence, and also caramel color is linked to some diseases in rats and mice. So it's not good for you, and also booze is great for you, so don't forget that.
Right. As we were talking about.
So why has
earlier.
bourbon really taken off? If you look
Well, I
over the
think it's
last.
funny too, it's like bourbon almost died out.
Yeah,
Clear spirits. were
like
like-
since probably like 05.
And what really triggered that? I mean, it's just, you know, as soon as that hit, it's kind of gone insane.
Yeah.
Because didn't they almost die out because.
It did almost die out, and the
Clear
craziest
spirits
part
were
actually,
thing.
bourbon wasn't even legally established as a category until like the 60s, so it happened pretty late. But the answer is, if you remind me at the end, the last bit, I can't give away yet.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
But there's, since then there has been like a resurgence of bourbon, and the Japanese kind of loved that, and then I gotta say, Japanese is gonna make a good argument for the best whiskey in the world probably at some point, but the trouble is they got way more demand than supply, so. Yeah, exactly. But anyway, everybody's thirsty. So here's my little housekeeping with the old fashioned. I gotta say, I've been working in bars plenty long enough to tell you that typically gents prefer an old fashioned more than gals do. That doesn't mean some
You
gals
haven't met
don't.
Lisa yet.
Yeah.
She was introduced last night and she really
This
likes it.
All
That's the
right.
first bourbon drink you really enjoy?
Well, you beat me to it, but I was gonna say
Go ahead.
that doesn't. No, you're good. That doesn't mean that some gals don't like it and blah blah blah. But if it's a little too spirit forward for you, we call it, then I can turn it into a whiskey sour variation for you.
I do
Actually,
love whiskey
so
sour.
no
I do
problem.
too.
Now you can feel free to ask, but try it first, because the thing is, actually, many people haven't had a proper old fashioned. All right, so with the old fashioned, let's start
This
the
is perfect.
conversation.
Nervous. I'm
It's
like,
perfect
I
timing.
can't wait for this. This is awesome.
He brought his old
You're under
fashioned
pressure
kit
now.
with him
Oh,
I mean-
this weekend. So he's really looking
Just to
forward to
make
seeing
it.
this.
Yeah.
That's a good guy right there.
Good friend to have.
Do you have orange peels?
No.
Oh.
Just let him
Okay.
He is silently judging.
Let him go.
Of course we do.
I want to hear.
All right, so but with the old fashioned, let's start the conversation here. Anybody in here like essential oils?
Yeah, sure.
All right, that's cool. I like the non-essential oils myself. It's a bit of a dad joke sometimes. But anyway, we only brought up essential oils, of course, because we're gonna use bitters. Now, bitters is in essence one of the world's kind of naturally extracted essential oils. So, this right here is how we taste things in bars. We'll put a little dab on our wrist and then taste it. So, if you want to hold out your hand, I'm gonna give you a taste of this. Now, it's important to say that this little tasting trick we're doing right now, we got this from cocaine. So many of you know the move already.
You look so
Don't
natural.
snort this.
Yeah.
Lisa, you were a natural with that.
Yeah. No, actually, it just helps
I
to
love
kind of
this
deconstruct the flavor.
So this is bitters.
Yeah, but yeah, it's.
This is bitters.
I like the American bitters.
It has that,
Yeah.
it smells so good.
Dave,
Oh,
we
wow.
never test your bitters this
Wow,
way,
that's gotta
so
be-
I don't know.
That tastes
My
like
next
that.
I think you get a new
I like
step in the
it.
routine.
What is bitters? I wouldn't even know how to use it.
So yeah, I'll tell you. But
Cinnamon.
it's important to say, I guess, for about 8 months of this cocktail class, we're using what we call split bitters. Now, split bitters is a fancy way of saying use two different kinds of bitters. Okay, Angostura and orange, or aromatic and orange. So everybody knows Angostura as a brand.
Yeah.
It's kind of become a catch-all. Oof. If you see any mistakes, I forgot to tell you this is a ghost tour meets a cocktail class, so I'm being haunted. Anything up here. But that was, of course, before we developed our own bitters. So this is actually a mix of aromatic and orange bitters together. Okay, so we're gonna do 4 dashes per cocktail.
What's the bitter?
Yeah.
You can call it a
Just by, I don't know how to
That's
buy
all.
it.
Is that the bitters bottle you have?
Yeah, orange.
It smells good on the hand.
So 4 dashes per cocktail, and then next up we're gonna sweeten this with what they call demerara syrup. So anybody ever heard of demerara sugar before?
We had it last night.
All right.
We did. Yep.
So it's the same thing as turbinado sugar, if you ever heard of that. So you can usually find it in the baking aisle. Bakers will use it, and all it is in essence is cane sugar. Sat out in the sun, and molasses naturally and crystallizes.
Are your cherries in the can?
So don't get me started on the cherry. In the first place, the third most important is that it looks pretty. You can see through it.
Yeah.
The second is that there's less impurities, right? Second most important, which is important but it's not the most important. The most important is it dilutes way slower than other kinds of ice. So the reason you use clear ice in a cocktail that's served over ice is the same reason why you would chill a glass for an up drink that's not served over ice, and that is just to keep the cocktail as cold as possible for as long as possible. So technically those spheres have a little bit less surface area. So they're gonna dilute the slowest. But you'll understand in a second why we actually want a little bit of dilution for this cocktail, so it wouldn't be best for an old fashioned. So everybody in here has seen chipped ice before, right? Those little half moons you find in dive bars?
Yeah.
The trouble with those is they're white and small. There's a joke in there somewhere. But I never say that one.
No idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. Can't relate. Alright. So yeah, so little pockets of air and more surface area is going to make them dilute way quicker. Go ahead.
I have a question. Do you rest your ice cubes before you pour like this?
Yeah,
To
that's why I
prevent-
put them in first actually,
Okay.
because they will crack.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So we only did about a 1/4 ounce of the syrup actually, then we're gonna pour a full lick of bourbon up the top, and we're using Old Forester 86 actually because for my money it's the best bourbon you can get for the price. Now if you ask me in a week it's gonna be Town Branch because they're a sponsor now.
Oh, what is it?
Old Forester 86, yeah, so
86.
86 actually refers to the proof.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now, people ask me this a lot. In cocktails, you always want to use the highest quality spirit, but also for the price, right?
Right.
Because, of
Yeah.
course, you're diluting it with other stuff. So basically value. So not the cheapest, not the most expensive. Now, is this one going to be shaken or stirred?
Stir.
We'll give it away.
You're awake.
All right. So you guys have probably seen a bartender use a mixing tin or a mixing glass before to stir, but I can stir it actually right in the glass it's served in, but only because I'm using clear ice. So if I was stirring over the chipped ice that I mentioned, I would stir it over ice and get it off the ice as soon as I can because it's going to be over diluted.
Just to cut the dilution.
But to answer your question too, we always say that ice to bartenders is like heat to chefs. It's a good way to think of it actually, because in essence, this is the element that we're binding ingredients together with. So dilution itself is kind of the final ingredient of the cocktail. It's the connective tissue that brings everything else together. So, long story long, it sits here for a second, that's actually good, but then you guys being thirsty, but we need the dilution to bring all the other flavors together, right? One thing I gotta say is service is slow here.
It's all good.
Alright, so could you please put your hand out under the light like this so we can see it?
My left hand, or does it matter?
Doesn't matter.
Okay, up or down?
Either one. Maybe we're right about there. Alright, let me know if everybody can see this.
Yeah.
Alright. So it's not just dark sorcery or magic when you see bartenders do that. It's a real reason. The reason is inside the skin of citrus peel there's a really aromatic oil. It's so aromatic actually it's going to open up the palate, we say, for all these other flavors in the cocktail. So you guys will get a chance to do this. You want to spritz them over the top, then rim the top of the glass. You got anything for that one?
I'm watching it.
I'm not gonna say that either.
I'm mesmerized.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. So in cocktails, there's this idea of doubling down on flavor profiles. Basically, again, a fancy way of saying you take two flavors that are similar but from different places, you put them together, and that gives you a lot more depth of flavors. So that's the reason why you want orange bitters and an orange twist, brown sugar to pair with whiskey. And then actually, in my opinion, why you'd use bourbon in the first place, because like we already talked about, so high corn mash bills result in a sweeter flavor profile, right, compared to rye. So that's why it would work better with something that we're sweetening.
It's interesting though, because the orange is so strong. It really
Yeah, it really
takes
is.
over a lot of it.
Yeah.
So the rye's more bitter. The
Absolutely.
rye's a little more bitter.
Yeah.
So rye bourbon,
So
I mean,
you
it's
guys
less
were
than
all
51%.
rye, and I did the Heaven Hill, that was a better choice.
I might be able to help.
Oh, with when we did the old fashioned.
When we did the old fashions.
All right, so I would just say too that rye would be a distinction from bourbon. So rye bourbon is not a category, but if rye, yep, there it is. So if rye is made in the States though, it follows a similar process to bourbon where the barrel has to be new and all that stuff, so it's good. Of course, the difference being it has to be 51% rye or more. But rye can also be made in Canada and other places. So if it's made in Canada, it's pretty much all shit.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So you got Old Forester because of the value.
Yeah, exactly.
If you got three buddies and you're making an old fashioned and you got access to any bourbon you want, you're not worried about value. What's your personal one or two bourbons you're gonna make?
Sure,
In your
What's your
old fashioned.
favorite?
Yeah, bourbon's one of my favorites. So I actually have a couple Pappies I got during COVID for pretty good value.
Yeah.
I like to mix them with Coke.
That's it, we're no longer following you.
Red flag.
Red flag.
No, but I actually got a crazy story about that. But I would say, like, average across the country is probably 35 for Old Forester 86. So great value for what it is. Now, if you were willing to like double that, I'd say Michter's. Michter's is one of my favorites. Yeah. Now,
We do like it.
one of the things you might not know is when you go into a bar and you see all this shit, basically all of it's owned by one of three companies, either Bacardi, Diageo, or Pernod Ricard. So those are big portfolios, basically they own everything, so they typically gobble up the competition, water shit down. So Michter's is one of the few distilleries actually that hasn't sold out to a bigger portfolio. And they got a great product too. So was there another question?
Which does Buffalo Trace fall under one of those three then?
So Buffalo Trace is owned by Sazerac.
Yeah.
And now Sazerac's separate from those three, but they own a shitload of whiskeys.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
And that doesn't mean the product always gets diminished and it becomes worse, but oftentimes it does. Yeah.
So, with the orange peel and expressing the oils, is there any benefit to heating the orange peel before you express it?
So, when you flame an orange twist or any of those, the oils are actually flammable. It's a great way to charge $5 more per cocktail.
It doesn't really.
No, it does. So the only classic cocktails that call for a flamed citrus peel are going to be like Flip, Brandy Alexander. They're almost always dessert cocktails. Because what happens is the oils actually caramelize as they go through the flame. So you wouldn't want to do that in this case, unless it's all for show. But what do you think? How is it?
Very good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Really good. All right. So the silly question, the ice, is that tap water that you just freeze in blocks, or is there any special?
Well, so the guy we buy ice from in New York has a company called Hundredweight. And he had a cocktail joint in Queens called Dutch Hill back in the day, in the early 2000s. So he was kind of the first guy to sell clear blocks of ice to bars, because for most bars it's a lot cheaper to just buy them than to make them because of labor. And I actually only brought that up because actually Eater just did a piece on it. There's like a cool YouTube video, an article about it. But I saw the facility they have here. So people often say, you want to boil the water or purify
Yeah,
it.
what's the trick to get it clear?
So both those things will help, but not quite do the trick. The main thing is you need circulation and insulation. That means anything to you. But those blocks they have up there, they're made in, like, they look like ice baths. So they make these 300-pound blocks, but they're self-circulating. But actually the key is it has a lid that latches so that no pockets of air can form and escape. So it's like a slow freezing technique where it's frozen from outside in, basically.
How'd you make it at home though? How'd you get it
Yeah.
perfectly clear? That'd be tough.
It's hard.
Now you can actually,
Right? That's what I wondered. Because that's really cool.
That's amazing.
I bought like a bowl or whatever, and you, anyway,
it doesn't work that well, does it?
No, we can't.
I'm sorry.
But
No, I know you.
even though I would say everyone's eyes glazed over during the first history bit, I'll tell you about the history of the old fashioned
love it.
We
anyway.
love this shit.
So here it is.
You got your older crowd here.
Alright, so the oldest cocktail book ever written is called How to Mix Drinks by a guy called Jerry Thomas. Okay, it was written in 1862. Well, the oldest one that's ever published. And the story goes, actually, How to Mix Drinks was just his personal bar guide. There's like 5-10 drinks in it. But he published it and actually got pretty popular. Because really the only thing America's ever offered to the culinary world is actually the cocktail itself. So I always say an easy way to remember that is we invented everything good. Now,
Amen. Amen.
one of the drinks in the book was called a bitter sling, and a bitter sling was defined as bitter sugar, water, and spirit. So if you think about that, it breaks down the old fashioned we know now, except sans the ice. Without the ice, because in the 1860s, of course, this was before the ice trade. So long before freezers, the ice trades from the Northeast would cut blocks of ice from lakes and then ship them down south, right?
Yep.
So really the only point there is the bitter sling's been around forever, although at that time actually it could have been made with any spirit. But America really only had whiskey, rum, and gin in the States pre and then during Prohibition, right?
Really?
So, yeah. So that's actually the reason we don't cover vodka or tequila in the class. I could elaborate later. But, so that was of course before Prohibition. If we flash forward a little bit, we already talked about Prohibition starts in 1920, all bartenders leave, right? So long story short, Prohibition itself was pretty much a colossal failure. Put a ton of money in the pockets of the mafia. Your family might have benefited, but
Actually, yeah.
Oh, he's Italian now, is he?
and actually it didn't stop.
Hey, Templeton Rye was Al Capone's favorite whiskey.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Templeton Rye.
Templeton
So that's
Rye.
out of DC, right?
Look,
Or no, I'm thinking of
Templeton's out of
Iowa. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
But yeah, so also Prohibition didn't stop drinking much. It's just that everyone was drinking shittier stuff like bootleg gin. Or whatever.
Like about dying.
Yeah, exactly. So it was lifted 13 years later in 1933. This time all the bartenders had left, they came back, right? Except now they have a vengeance because they have new spirits, creativity, ingredients from all around the world. Of course, everyone's thirsty, right? So the era after Prohibition, 30 years, basically the rest of the 30s, 40s, 50s, a little bit of the 60s, we call that the first cocktail revolution. First cocktail revolution, we call it that because basically every classic cocktail we know was invented during that time frame. So just like anything else, suppress something, it comes back with a vengeance. So all the creativity, cool stuff in cocktails happened after Prohibition, but you can imagine being an old timer at this time. It's now a bunch of kids kind of making weird shit with weird ingredients, right? Not what they're used to. So there's an old timer, and actually, literally, that was his pen name, who wrote an article in the New York Times in the 50s, kind of lamenting the days of the old-fashioned cocktail. So he wrote, "I miss the days when a barman would simply soak a lump of sugar with bitters, then add a block of ice, and then give the glass, the other bottle of whiskey, actually, to the patron to pour their own drink." No, I'm not going to do it that way today. But so it's a tale of two stories, really. The story of the recipe and the story of the name. It's also a story you've all heard before, which is an old timer. And again, that's his pen name. It's kind of whining about the way these kids were making cocktails. But the New York Times article gets published and gets pretty popular, and then from then on, people started ordering a cocktail the old-fashioned way. So that's what cemented the old-fashioned history.
So that name's been around since the 30s and 40s. The old-fashioned.
Yeah, old-fashioned way would have been, like 40s, 50s. Yeah. Went to a bar and asked for a daiquiri, but with Luxardo maraschino pure and grapefruit juice instead of simple syrup. Now the funny bit is actually that has more sugar, it turns out, but that was the idea. Having a daiquiri is actually a great cocktail. But here's the situation with the last cocktail. Like I said, you're all gonna make it.
Oh dear. Oh.
Cool.
And it's my favorite classic cocktail. So don't ask me again. But you also gotta figure out what it is, okay? Now the hint is that some of the ingredients actually are in the name of the cocktail. So we'll have to do this in groups, but I'll set this up and keep going.
I guess it's gin based.
I think it's a gin and tonic. Maybe I'm way wrong.
It's not a gin tonic.
Gin martini.
Because
A martini.
not a gin martini. So gin tonic would be a little too easy for you.
That's what I was thinking. I don't know. I mean, it probably has it, but I don't know.
So one question for you, so you can call bullshit on it or not. We used to live
That's
in
bullshit.
central. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
We used to live in central Illinois,
Okay.
and they used to say that right around
That is
Prohibition
definitely
time
not a
frame.
flex, by the way.
Yeah. This is the opposite of a flex.
Alright.
Right.
But they used to say Peoria, Illinois was actually the whiskey capital of the world coming out of Prohibition.
Because I mean, I didn't know that. I don't know if that's true, but yeah, because like Al Capone, a lot of the shit they were bootlegging was from Canada. So I wondered. I don't actually know for sure though.
Well, they do say like all the mob guys in Chicago at that time would keep their families in Peoria when stuff would happen. So maybe it's true.
Yeah.
It's a good story.
Yeah. Don't worry, round two's gonna get harder because you get to watch the first round, right?
There we go.
Feel it, I've read about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you guys ever been behind the bar before?
Absolutely.
Look at Dave's truck back there.
Dave Stratton.
Oh my gosh.
Dave.
Hey, this is
That's
actually
Dave.
You got something there. Now scoot on all the way down because you got 4 setups here. No, you're good. You're coming this way. Come this way.
The other way.
All right.
Okay.
I think by now you guys all know what to do, so go for it. We'll see what you got.
But we don't know
kidding, I'll help.
the recipe, right?
I'm gonna help. I'm joking.
Okay.
All right. I gotta tell you though, this is probably one of my favorite parts because I don't have to do a whole lot. And also, you're making your own drink, so if you fuck anything up, you know who to blame, right? All right. But everybody in front of them, you have a shaker, a jigger. This is how you measure everything.
I don't remember it.
You have hawthorne strainer with coiled fine strainer, garnish, and a glass. So in a cocktail joint, we always want to start out with the least expensive ingredient first.
Okay.
Why do you think that is?
Piece of screwed up.
That's right. Before we get there, though, you guys all.
He is on
Wow, that
fire.
is pretty good.
You know why? It screws up a lot.
All right, so you guys all know what's the first step, no matter what you're making.
I'm
Chill the glass.
There it is, nice and done. So let's put ice in that glass because I'm sensing this is gonna take forever. I'm kidding. All right, there it is.
Now, rookies will do it.
Yeah, exactly. Don't do that. Don't tip your glass in ice. Because if you break the ice in the glass, you gotta burn all the ice.
All of it has to be gone.
All of it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's a liability.
I did that one time in my place, like, no, don't do that. Yeah.
All right. So now we're on to the least expensive ingredient first. That's true. So if you fuck anything up, you can throw it. Hopefully, you don't waste any booze, right? So actually, Least expensive is actually the saffron honey syrup.
Oh,
So what you're gonna do is you're gonna pour 3/4 of an ounce into the top line of the small side there.
No, good thing I have my glasses.
And then, after you measure it, you're gonna pour it into the small side of the tin in front, so hand the honey down. Everybody's got a jigger there to measure with.
Do the small.
There's a line inside this?
Yeah, well, see, this is part of the fun. You drink 2 drinks and make one in the dark.
Second plate on that.
There's 2 lines.
Yeah, so go to the top line.
Right?
That's good.
Right.
Perfect. A little bit more, actually. Do a little bit more. And then you are going to pour it in the small side of the tin, but you can go ahead and move on to the lemon juice.
Small one.
Right in front there, perfect. Now, if we're using the golden ratio, how much lemon juice are you going to pour?
Same amount.
Same
1 to 1.
There it is. Same amount. 3/4 of an ounce. Now, you might think honey's more expensive than lemon, but of course, this lemon juice here is fresh squeezed, just as it should be for any cocktail joint, so we'd also be factoring in the labor.
So the golden
Now-
thing applies because we're shaking.
That's right.
Yes.
Now, you go ahead and move on to the gin. Same question. We're using the golden ratio here, so how much you pouring now? There it is. 2 parts.
2 parts, 1.5 ounces.
There it is. We got a math guy for you. So top line of the big side now is 1.5 ounces. Now, I gotta tell you that legal pour in South Carolina is 1.5 ounces. Most of the north it's 2.
There is a legal pour, really.
Yeah, exactly. To measure DUIs and shit like that.
Really?
But I always say if you go over, I don't really give a shit. Just don't tell anybody.
There you go.
We rented a van.
To the top.
Yeah.
To the top. That's what I'm hearing.
All right. Now the gin here is
break
called
that down.
Greenhouse Gin.
So this is the 1-to-2 ratio when you get one of these.
There you go, exactly. Now you're gonna use the big side of the gin.
Oh.
So that gin's called Greenhouse Gin. I always say it ain't your granddaddy's gin. It's very floral. The distillery in Houston, Texas is 100% woman-owned and operated. No one ever gives a shit, but actually the gin's good too. So that's all the ingredients. Now put a big scoop of ice in the small side of the tin. That's the same one you just poured into. And now here's the strategy, the reason why we pour and put ice in the small side of the tin.
Do it in here?
Yep, go for it. Is because now after you do that, you're gonna put it back on the bar with ice. Now flip the big side, put it on the small side, smack it with your palm on top. We call that locking the tin pretty hard. It doesn't go anywhere. Now flip it so the small side's up and shake as hard as you can, alright? And I'm not trying to be funny here, but actually you're looking for the longest stroke possible.
Yeah. Yeah, E! I mean, that is like, there you go.
Alright, now keep shaking.
How many times did we walk into a room in college and have to turn our back?
You're not good. I like how you hunch over when you do it. Alright. You actually, I hate to tell you, you want to shake a little longer. You want to see frost on the outside of the tin. Make sure you hold both sides so it doesn't come open. Now, you can always know who had the best shake by how much froth is on top of the cocktail, alright?
Yeah, there we go.
That's aeration. Alright. Now, I'm talking literally as hard as you can. There it is. Alright. Now, I hate to say sorry to tell you, you've been shaking way too long now. Yeah. No, I'm kidding. That's perfect. You notice that there's a
Yeah, well done, Barb.
Let me show you a little trick, but I'm not going to do it.
really good at that.
So, I'm going to show you a trick, but I won't open it for you. So when you lock a tin, you almost always have a flush side and then a gap side, okay? Where you're going to aim, math people, 90 degrees in between the flush side and the gap side to open it. So grab the bottom, pull it up towards you, hit where there's a small gap, not a big gap. On the big side, the same side you're holding, it's going to come right open. Like here.
I'm not gonna lie, Barb,
Right
when
about
you
there.
did
There it is. That's
I
the
was
sound
like,
you're looking
it's just
for.
like him
Boom.
on the other shit.
Right in the middle.
Hit it on the edge. I think you're like maybe more like right.
Alright, so, but you're going to aim before there's a little bit of a gap.
So hit it right here.
Yeah, pull it towards you a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, before you strain anything, the ice in the glass you're going to dump. Now, since the ice and the glass is clean, you can dump it right back.
Dump the ice in the glass.
Dump that ice.
Back in the good ice.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. So everything's clean.
What about double strainer?
So, yep, so Hawthorne strainer with the coil, you got it right here. You can watch him. Coil down where the liquid is.
Oh, wait, what?
And you hold that with your pointer finger, but before you strain, hold the fine strainer perfect.
Dave, how did you know to do that?
But yeah, you want it where the liquid is.
I got lucky. I've been in a bar.
So hold your, you can go ahead and strain if you're ready, go ahead.
Can I go ahead?
You can follow him. Do exactly what he's doing right here.
What's he doing?
There you go. Put it through both strainers. Well done. You got it. Nice. All right. Let's see who's got the most froth here. Now I gotta say, typically gals shake better than guys do. I don't know why, but
Right?
thinking yours looks the best. Or you, both of you two gals, you guys suck. The gals look great.
You
I
gals.
hear Missy in my head.
Look at the froth on that, Tom.
That's great. There's froth there too. Drinks
Oh,
over
and
here.
Barb wins.
All right.
Yeah, Dave
Barb.
sucks.
So throw that stuff anywhere. She's got a heavy hand, I noticed. That's all right.
Oh, we gotta do the
Did you
limit.
dump the ice in there?
I did accidentally.
All right, I'll show you a trick really quick. So just basically take the strainer off.
Trainer, yeah.
Now dump everything back into the tin.
Gotta be shaking
If you don't want to go fast, just go
Yeah, pour
fast.
fast. Nice.
Hey, good
All
job.
right, now strain it back.
Oh, there you go.
Actually, you're getting 2 practices. That's actually
Yeah, there you
Yeah,
go. Extra
cool.
practice.
No ice in it.
So everybody else, you
She's
got
a
one more
double.
step. Garnish it. So there's a lemon twist in front of you. Now here's the key. You hold the pith, which is the white part, toward you. Okay. I think that one's yours actually. This one's yours right there.
No. Here you go, eat.
And the yellow part towards the cocktail, you got it right here. Bend it long ways. Some people say hot dog style. All the oils are gonna fly out.
Like this?
Twist it.
So with the rind out. But flip it around in your hand. Now bend it long ways, hot dog style. You got it? Nice.
Bend it long.
You got it. Hot dog style. So you're gonna actually feel it get oily after that. Now you wanna rim the top of the glass here.
Wait, am I supposed to twist it?
And then, yeah, a little
A
bit.
couple drops should come out,
Can we
right?
leave it in?
Yeah.
Put it in there?
It's just the lighting's not
I
great.
think they say fold it in half.
But you wanna rim it with the yellow part where the oils came out.
Oh, there you go. Oh.
This was a rough one.
Can we
Right,
put
then
it?
put it in there.
Yeah, twist it up, throw it in the drink,
Probably
put it
not.
on the side. Let's give it up for these
This
four.
is gonna be.
Take it to your seat.
You guys actually first want a photo while you're back there?
Yeah.
Use this phone right
It's like
here.
the
or,
coolest thing I've
this
ever
one.
felt.
Some people just wave juniper over the batch.
Okay.
And then in the botanical could be citrus peel, flowers, herbs, spices, so it's a very diverse category. So there's so much variety in gin. It's actually my favorite spirit for that reason. It actually depends. Like I love the botanist. Check out the botanist. And then the lazy way to make gin is you take vodka or a neutral grain spirit, similar to vodka. We'll talk about vodka later. Just waiting on glasses, and you guys can jump back here. And then you steep the botanicals, like an infusion. But it's not all done that way because the best way to make gin is actually, there's a unique piece. So everybody here has seen a still before. Fermented beverage goes in the still, it gets heated, and out the other end you have a spirit, right? So the best way to make gin is basically you have a unique piece on the still. It's called a basket, and you'll probably see it. It's a long tube, some windows in it basically, and you add the botanicals there. And then during the distillation process, actually, so before it would even become vodka, it infuses similar to the way like essential oils are made. This is
I've had a favorite mixed drink.
all right. Now
Take good notes.
round 2, we got to make it a little harder because you got to watch the first.
Exactly, it's too easy to taste. You gotta ramp up.
We were studying really hard so we could do it.
Yeah, we were.
Saffron.
And I think I'm ready for you. So go ahead and jump back here. You guys been behind the bar before? All right. So here's the situation. Round 2, we're going for speed.
Okay.
But keep in mind, you're also on the same team. 'Cause you gotta,
Gotta be by your
you gotta share the ingredients anyway.
I was gonna say, no elbows.
But also,
Plenty of ice and.
also, us 5, you 4 that already made a drink, make sure they do it right, because I really don't want to work. But also, we're gonna put the pressure on them like it's Friday night. We're trying to get a drink,
I
okay?
got stuff going on.
So
Start with this,
we're off to a
right?
good start. Go ahead, go for it. Yeah.
Icing up our glasses. Good job.
Now the ingredients this time we're gonna start down here
I
with
got
you,
pretty
sir.
aggressive on that.
So I got those all in order.
Can I put ice in this right away?
No, don't do that.
No.
So you never want to pour over ice because then it's gonna dilute before you shake. The cocktail's gonna be over diluted. Now we're off to a good start here. I gotta tell you.
Recorder that.
All right, hand that
Yeah,
out.
aggressive on that.
Actually, you got your own right there.
Oh,
There it is. Yep.
That's
Perfect.
what I'm doing.
Those folks are ready down here.
Let's go.
Now also,
Hurry up, I want my drink.
Is that all?
let me get 2 of those and 3 of these, please.
Right?
Hey, what's your
Why won't
favorite
you look
cocktail?
at me?
You make anything pink here? All right, nice. We're cooking with grease, as we say in the South.
Got those three in.
Now also the logic is if you do lemon second after honey, it'll wash out some of the residual sugars in the jigger, so you get the
Nice in here, right?
perfect measurement. Yep, there it is. Nice, you got
Put
it.
a full scoop.
Full scoop. Pretty much as big as you can get. There you go. Smack it.
Lemon
Flip it. So small sides up. Keep one hand on each side. Now shake as hard as you can. Here. There it is.
Turn it on.
Cocktail.
Hey, we
Start shuffling bottles later.
hell yeah.
I'll get taken out.
So put a scoop of ice in this. You got
How do
it?
we know when we're done?
Do you have it in the small side already?
I can't even get
We're
there.
there. Just dump the ice from the glass in there. Please block it. Hey, we get it. You work out, bro.
He's flexing now.
Alright, there you go.
How do you know?
Now put the small side on the bar, flip the big side, put it on the small side, smack it once on the bar. So you lock it.
That's okay.
There you go. Flip it, shake it. Now you guys put the big side down. Now grab the bottom and pull it up towards you. You just brute forced it. I like it. There you go. You got it right there. Dump that ice. Nicely done. You got one of each strainer. That's perfect. So you want to dump that ice in the glass.
Mike, you don't want ice in the glass.
Where you dumping the ice there?
Lisa!
It's reusable ice.
She's ahead.
What a good flour the liquid is.
Put it in there.
That's about right. That's a good shake. You got it. So you break it open.
And then I'll.
There you go. Perfect.
Boom. Get a little height to try to get that foam.
So just twist it in your hand a little bit and hit it with a smaller gap.
Smaller
You
than
two are married, right? So hit it like you're mad at him about something.
No, you don't.
It always does the trick though.
So like
So hit the
this?
bottom that you're holding, the bottom tin.
Like this?
Yeah.
Then twist it.
Mine like
Voila.
There it is.
Hey!
You got it, you got it there. Wait, don't dump it yet, don't dump it
Go with the
yet.
yellow.
You want to put it through both strainers. One with the coil goes on the tin where the liquid is.
Goes on top.
Perfect.
Boom. Yes. Perfect.
There it is.
Teamwork.
Teamwork.
She's got a
Bar
bar
back,
back.
that's cheating actually.
And again, we're trying to get the citrusy or more add
Oh.
air, or what are we?
Cheryl.
Yeah, both. Integrate all the flavors and,
my gosh.
and add aeration.
Cheryl.
Oh,
Last but not least, that was awesome.
And
Who's
get
got
the
the
chips
most
of ice out. So lemon twist, white part towards you, yellow part towards the cocktail, bend it long ways, hot dog style.
Other way, Tom.
Yeah, oils, the yellow part facing the drink, perfect. So
Man,
you
you
want
gotta
those
make this
oils
like
to
20
fly out and
seconds.
then hit the cocktail.
Yeah, how quickly do you have to make this too? Yeah, 20 seconds, right?
Yeah, typically. I guess we threw speed out the window here though. I'm
Mike, we're
kidding,
getting
guys.
great tip.
Sorry, this side facing the drink.
Then.
There it
There you
is.
go.
That?
And then kind
Now
of.
you get,
No, I gotta do
you
that. I
can-
gotta do that. I do that.
so you can feel it get oily now, right?
Right.
That's when you want to rim the top of the glass with the yellow part where the oils came out.
That's pretty hot.
You can twist it up, put it on the side or in the drink, and let's give it up for these four. How about it?
Get in here.
Here we
Stop
go.
drinking.
Stop drinking. This shit showed up.
These knees.
How many times does he hear that each night?
These knees. Nice.
Awesome.
Good tasting, good tasting.
All right, shut it down.
Shut it.
Nice bar rescue joke.
Oh, that's good.
So do you like Bar Rescue or do you think it's cheesy?
It's cheesy, but it's
So
fun
it's
too.
called.
We don't think we can. It's called BC.
I like you.
I'll tell you all about it.
Thank you.
It's good froth there.
Yeah.
It was a weird compliment to give a man.
Yeah.
but I think so.
I feel a little uncomfortable right now.
I'm not uncomfortable.
She's feeling good back there.
She's gonna finish the rest of the
She's taking the gym with her.
It's interesting. It's a smell, and that's what.
How come I
Great.
just got
So-
something like
This?
Who started
I want to
this?
see what kind of
Who
gin.
started this?
Yeah, it smells really good.
Started what?
Ladies with trophy husbands.
Oh,
Yeah, sweet.
that's you guys.
So what?
I did.
I had a chance to say it. I'll say it again. Good, but no
Isn't
worries.
that appropriate?
We're in the
So
chat.
basically-
Ladies with trophy husbands.
This is a mix
Oh,
of what's it
perfect.
called?
Oh my goodness.
Style gin. And then they call it artisan gin, but it's a
Aren't we
floral
though?
gin meets an Old Tom
Very
style.
much so.
We're just
So actually, Old Tom style gin is when they used to add molasses to the gin during bathtub gin during Prohibition, so it's like a little sweeter. And there's a ton of botanicals, so it's the opposite of a lemon dry style that you're probably drink, which is very piney because it's very juniper.
Right. And I did hear you say that as we, and you were.
So what kind of gin do you prefer? More of a floral or?
I like floral gins,
I like that.
but the caveat here is that bartenders always start with the spirit first and reverse engineer the flavors. Remember we talked about doubling down on flavor profiles? And then build the cocktail around it. So it all depends on what you're making. Now this is actually distilled with lemon peel. That's why it would work great. Yeah, of course. Pass it around, give it a sniff,
Distilled lemon.
like we're doing drugs.
Yeah.
So, 2 questions.
Yeah.
So there used to be a place on King Street called Charleston Distillery.
Yeah.
Moved out to Johns Island.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So my 2 questions are, they always say they have the largest distilling towers on the East Coast. Does that sound like bullshit or not? And then 2, is their stuff any good? Or do you even know?
Do you know what they make?
You know, they make some of their own tequila. They make their
That's not
own.
possible. Because you can only make tequila in Mexico, legally.
Or maybe they call it agave.
Okay, yeah.
So they label it agave.
They sound like bullshitters already.
Okay.
But I would have to check. I actually don't know.
I know.
It's possible. The still thing is possible.
Yeah, they said they had some people from Germany come over. It's like 3.5 stories.
Yeah, maybe.
Anyway, okay, but you haven't tasted any of that stuff.
But I will though.
So,
That smells great.
yep, yep, is that 2 questions, Tom?
Huh?
Did you do your 2 questions?
Yeah, they're down to you, Dave.
Okay.
Ask some more insightful questions.
So I mentioned the Linden Lime Gin
Yeah.
before. It's actually a company out of Scotland.
Okay.
Their end goal is really make scotch, but they're making gin and vodka. But it's in Charleston. They're actually just starting to distribute it. But the bottle won an award for the best designed bottle. Okay. It's named after a man who, like, whatever, like the scurvy way back when, and kind of the British Navy. So
Is the bee's knees. Of course, they call it the bee's knees
And
because.
you're the bee's knees.
Yes.
you know, we're a couple Brits in now.
Prohibition era compliment
Suck it
there.
up there.
So,
Hey, sweet pea.
You're the bee's knees.
well, like you're alluding to here, basically, of course, bee's knees is like a prohibition era slang for the best or the greatest or the cat's meow, if you will, right? But
Yeah.
the story of the cocktail goes that during Prohibition, mostly high society would use lemon and honey to cover up the taste of really shitty bathtub gin. So, is anybody noticing a pattern here at all with all that? With the stories in general. Bathtubs.
Covering up crappy.
There it is.
That's probably, yeah.
Like you said in the beginning, we're using all bottom shelf shit today. That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
So we know what we're gonna serve our friends.
But here's the coolest part right here. Actually, the story of the cocktail itself was birthed out of Prohibition because you did have to cover up the taste of really shitty booze with other stuff. That's how the cocktail was born. And then, of course, over the years with great ingredients to mix them with, they become amazing concoctions, right? So it's a very poetic story. Now there's one more bit of history here for you, but I promise it's the last one. Okay, so we already talked about the first cocktail revolution, but then in the late 60s, early 70s, we hit what they call the dark ages in cocktails, all right? So for better or for worse, a combination of 3 things wiped craft cocktails like this off the face of the planet. So first one was the sexual revolution. Second one was a huge influx of drugs in the country around the same time. Now you might be thinking those are both good things, but let me finish here. So the third thing was basically the first time the market ever saw artificial shit like high fructose corn syrup dyes, right? So those 3 things all happened at once, and they wiped these kind of cocktails off the
60s
map.
and 70s.
Yeah, so this would have been 70s, 80s, and 90s. So it's not really a moral argument, because of course many people say there's a better time. You'd have to tell me, I don't know. But I'm kidding. But the point there is basically everyone was on Coke and didn't have a palate, and they didn't really care what they drank. So to bring it all full circle, 70s, 80s, 90s, that's kind of the era when the daiquiri would become frozen, strawberry, old-fashioned gets a bunch of muddled fruit, God knows what else, right? So it wasn't until 05 there was a guy named Sasha Petrosky, okay? So some people call Sasha Petrosky the godfather of the second cocktail revolution, and his whole goal was to revive the original cocktails of America, like this, right? So he actually was the guy to bring back fresh squeezed juice, homemade syrups, all that stuff. Now he actually died But then so first of all, he opened a joint called Milk and Honey in the East Village in Manhattan. So he died and it closed, and then his successor reopened it as a place called Attaboy. And it's still there. But the coolest part actually is the team came down to the south and they opened an Attaboy in Nashville, and then opened a bar here called The Last Saint. I'm actually not affiliated with them either. They should pay me by now.
What's it called
but-
again?
I know.
The last thing.
Last
What's in
Saint.
Nashville?
Attaboy.
Our daughter's in Nashville.
Yeah, ATTABOY. So it's called Last Saint here, and the story goes, one of the bartenders helps here, but they don't like pay me or anything. But I'll still send people there because, for my money, it's probably the best cocktails you're gonna get in Charleston. And the story there goes that basically in Charleston you can't open a bar within 100 feet of a church or a school, which is weird. I think you should be able to do that.
Yeah.
But they actually went to court and won with the church and called it Last Saint. It's like kind of a fuck you thing. But to this day they can't use the back door because it's like 97 feet or something.
Wow.
But yeah, with all that, there I actually got a little surprise for everybody.
Okay.
So like I promised, this right here, this is the written test.
Oh.
Oh dear.
No, it's
No more questions.
No, but I will say this, actually a shocking amount of people have asked me for notes on the class I have.
Oh,
back
that's
here.
I was just taking notes. I'm super psyched.
And then also that same side you're looking at, that has my top recommendations for bars and restaurants in Charleston. Right?
Ah, cool.
And I'm expecting you to frame this.
Alright.
Now after this, everybody get out.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. Actually, it gets a little more exciting than that because if you flip it around, you got 20, actually 40 now additional classic cocktails you can try when you're here.
Hey, all right.
Bees is on there.
Bees Knees is on there. All right, so this is the last thing I gotta kind of say to everybody. That we're now entering into what I call the unformatted bit of the class, okay? Because for obvious reasons, it's hard to keep everyone's attention at a drinking class. So, of course, the first 3 cocktails are included, but if you'd like, you can get another one for 15. Now, you don't have to. No one's gonna twist your arm, but of course, everyone always does.
Yeah, you don't
So this is actually special to me because you rarely see this many classic cocktails all in one place. And then based on what you order, of course, we can talk about more stories, more techniques, and if anyone does have an inkling to make another cocktail, you can do that as well.
What's your favorite cocktail?
Bees Knees. I said
It
that.
is? Oh, I didn't hear it.
Yeah, that was a
I'm with you.
And
That's
also
an
said,
after.
don't ask me again.
I was in the I was in the bathroom.
That's funny. That's my favorite.
Do you like it or can you have 3 or 4 maybe, or it's just one?
Yeah, you however much you've got time here. Look here. Hey guys, bars close on Sunday. We don't have time for that.
Ah, okay.
Sorry about that.
So, question with like with craft cocktails, you see a lot of egg white.
Yeah. I'm
It's
gonna
for
tell
a
you.
different
No,
reason.
but I'll tell. Let me guess, your daughter's single? No. I'm kidding.
No, I have little boys.
Okay, all right.
And they're not like that.
So you get one guess. This is the rule. Everybody gets to guess one time. If you get my age right on the first try, then I'll give you a shot on me.
Yeah.
I'm
That's a good rule. That's a good rule.
30.
Okay.
So you seem older than our oldest is from me.
Okay.
27.
All right. Appreciate that. Thank you. All right.
34.
All right.
You guys, we gotta flip this game around.
Over under.
Oh yeah, we're gonna flip the game.
We're
Yeah,
gonna
that's
flip the game on you, by the way.
Oh,
Now we are.
fuck
I
that.
want a shot. So I can-
31.
Wait until I get the tip.
Somebody needs to guess 33.
Did anyone say 33?
Okay.
We're a
I'll
team.
say 33. I would
Okay.
say a little bit younger than 33.
All right. You got one
You
more.
can go.
I'm gonna go. Has anyone gone 32 yet?
I did.
Yeah.
Go high.
Go.
30 to 35's taken.
Yeah, go.
I'm gonna go one more, even though you don't look this. We'll say
Yeah, yeah,
36.
All right. You got it. Well, no one gets a shot,
Yeah.
Oh.
but it's okay. Nobody in my family ages well. But thank you for your guess. I just turned 28.
You're our
You
son's
say
age.
you're
You
better.
are our son's age. You
Closest.
seemed older.
20.
Actually, you were closest by far.
Okay, let's go.
Wow.
Let's go.
So here's the thing.
So, Tom, you gotta buy her a
You
shot.
gotta do
Wow,
it.
that's America.
Very mature.
So
For your
the age game for me, I've actually opted out of 2 reasons. Well, one reason, but there's 2 sides to it. It's a lose-lose proposition.
Yeah.
Because,
It is.
of course, girls ask me to do this all the time. If I guess too young, it's a bit weird, right? They shouldn't be in the bar. If I guess too old, they're gonna be offended.
They're like,
So,
screw you.
Okay, who's the youngest?
You
Just
gotta
who's the
play the
youngest?
game.
Let's
Okay.
go. That's fair. None of us will be offended.
That's fair. You gotta pick the youngest.
I
Who's
might-
the youngest in this group?
Oh, youngest. Yeah.
We're
Yeah,
all.
we got about 7
We're all
years age
alive.
here, right? We have about a 7-year range.
Yeah.
So I hate to tell you this, but where you guys booked on Viator, I have all your dates of birth.
Oh, there you go.
So 67.
I actually did have to put that in. And I make shit up for you guys.
That's fine.
Everybody's
That's
born in
fine.
January.
We're all legal.
Yeah, I can't guess who the youngest. So that's bad.
You just got
That would be bad.
use a diversion tactic.
Yeah.
Diversion.
You guys
You're
all
gonna be my baby.
Other than when wearing glasses.
Okay, how about this? Which one of us has the oldest child?
Oh.
That's a hard
you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
My oldest.
You can say we have one your age. He's a good friend of mine.
Because we were a child bride and groom.
Which one has the youngest
It's a
child?
bit weird when you say it that way.
All right, I have a
But it
drink.
makes us feel
All right, let's
good.
hear it. Let's go. Kick it off here.
So you talked about like, crappy muddled fruit and all that stuff, and drinks and old fashioned wherever.
I'm gonna
Like,
order
what's
something.
your
on
take on
the
like cocktail cherries?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Is it
forgot to
appropriate?
mention that.
Is it appropriate for certain drinks?
So it comes up a lot. So, because of course at this cocktail class I've said some of the most offensive and horrific jokes I've ever heard. But actually, the no cherry in the old fashioned makes people more upset than anything else. But I'll give you 3 good reasons why a cocktail bar that's worth their salt will use a cherry in an old fashioned. Okay. So one is we tend to be history dorks, nerds about
So you're being
cocktails.
true
by
to.
name.
Yeah. So the first thing is it's not historically accurate for cherry in
He's
old
just
fashioned.
gonna want to do it.
Second thing is, you now know why you have to shake versus stir. In the old fashioned's a stirred cocktail, so if you put the cherry, the juice gets in there, it's so thick, it's almost to the point where you have to shake it, which you shouldn't. The third reason is the biggest reason, and that is it doesn't pair well with anything in old fashioned. So we got a chance to talk about doubling down on flavor profiles, right? There's nothing that pairs well with a cherry in old fashioned. Now, of course, cherry would be the obvious garnish for Manhattan, right? Because it pairs with vermouth.
Okay, that makes sense.
There it is. All right.
You put the cherry.
Now, have any of you gentlemen ever had a Sazerac before? So many people liken the Sazerac to an old-fashioned variation, but the thing is that
Absinthe.
Like when she had a Sazerac old fashioned last night, but not like the
Yeah.
What was the Sazerac?
Yeah. See, Sazerac,
Sazerac
There's the Sazerac.
the rye, they pretty much just are riding the coattails of the actual Sazerac, which actually many people say is the oldest cocktail of all time. New Orleans era classic. It's very similar to old fashioned, but you have addition. It's rye whiskey. You have addition of patience, bitters, and absinthe.
Absinthe, they used to say make you a little.
That's bullshit.
But didn't they used to say that?
Yeah.
Make
That
you a
was our
little
river?
thicker.
But the
Like
Patron
hallucinations.
bitters
I can tell you why. This is gold right here.
It's
Okay.
do it.
There you go, buddy. You're welcome.
My agent actually.
Money shot.
I'm right there for you, buddy.
So yeah, I'll switch it out. There we go. There's a good one.
Yeah, thank you.
We got another. We got another.
So it's the same one. I just one of them printed like shit.
Yeah.
All
way
right.
better.
So actually, the UK had their own prohibition before ours. It was actually in the 1800s. Now the prohibition of absinthe was the first of it. It started in the 1800s, the early 1800s, I think. But there's a lot of weird lore with absinthe. Like, of course, Vincent van Gogh was said to cut his own ear off whilst on absinthe and then mail it to a hooker, which is a good move. I think you should try that too. But the thing is, there's a few chemical components in there, herbs and spices that will make you hallucinate. Wormwood and thujol. Now the trouble is though, if you were ever to hallucinate on absinthe, you'd be basically dead of alcohol poisoning 10
Before you
times
got
over.
there.
But the story of the prohibition of absinthe happens with this religious French scientist who tested thujol and wormwood on dogs. They would go crazy, eat each other. So he's like, this is the alcohol of the devil. And then so it was made illegal. And then actually the craziest part is it wasn't even re-legalized. Of course, just like everything else in the States, it was made illegal during Prohibition. But then it wasn't re-legalized until 2015.
Wow.
But all it is a high-proof neutral grain spirit with a bunch of herbs and spices added.
So is it like an Everclear with things added?
It's not
or-
quite that high. It's like most absinthes are right around 70%.
Oh,
Yeah,
Okay.
and you can make it in the U.S. now. But it actually never made you hallucinate. That was always horseshit. All right, what are we starting off here with, guys?
So,
You got some.
I think so. What would you think? Penicillin was interesting.
That is my favorite cocktail.
Is it?
Yeah.
I'm a
No,
penicillin
you
man.
said it was the bee's knees.
Shame on you.
Two.
No, but I will say this: penicillin's up there for me for sure. So penicillin actually was invented by Sam Ross, and Sam Ross was the gentleman who revived milk and honey, turned it into Attaboy. And the story goes actually, so he was training under Sasha Petrosky. He originally wanted to call the penicillin a brown dog.
Okay.
And Sasha goes, that sounds like a shit, you can't call it that.
It does.
So let's call it whatever, honey, ginger,
Like something for your
has medicinal properties, so we'll call it penicillin.
So what
Let's do it.
Okay, hold on one second. You can go to the
Yep,
bathroom.
that's right.
All right, so this cocktail class actually is pretty close to zero waste. That's true because we cut all the lemons and lime twists, juice all the lime and stuff like that. All the byproducts actually gets put into the syrups. So the oils that you saw in the light in real time, those are called polyflavonoids. They act as natural preservatives in syrups. We already talked about how all this, it's kind of the same shit, it's owned by the same few people. So what they don't want you to know is that actually all the flavors in the syrup. That's true. Because you know the golden ratio now, the acid is meant to balance out the flavor which is in the syrup, and then the alcohol is what we call the vehicle. So one of the reasons why bartenders don't like working with mocktails is not just because they're cheaper, it's because ethanol is very aromatic, so it carries flavors really well. So these are available for retail, they're 19 individually, you can get a 3-pack for 53, but it's actually special because it's only the second week we've had all 10. So there's an early bird discount on all 10, it's $147, but here's the coolest part right here. If you're traveling, we can ship it to you and shipping's free, but also it includes the first 10 pages of my cocktail book that comes out in April with one recipe on how to use each one of them, so you know exactly how to use them. And no worries if not there, it's a great way to support small business though, and that's not the surprise though.
Oh. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get.
wait, there's more.
And then you guys can figure out which one's.
We're in.
Fine.
Each couple's getting a 10 pack.